when it comes to the spring's most important position battles, and what I mean by this is, look, you look at the left guard spot, for example. Well, Logan Parr doesn't get here until the summer. Ja'Kai Clark doesn't get here until the summer. Same goes for the center position with Branson Hickman. They've got Ben Sparks at left guard right now. That's a position that'll be settled a little bit more so in the summer and in fall camp. And we'll see that position battle rage on once those guys get here. When it comes to the here and now, I look at number one on my list, the running back position. And I think Jaylan Knighton is going to win the starting job. Don't get me wrong. But you have LJ Johnson, who's impressed. They've both impressed during spring workouts so far. But look, you have Camar Wheaton, a very, very highly touted player, coming back. He showed some flashes last year. How does he look in spring ball? One thing to note with this position battle is I would expect Tyler Levine to be out for the spring. He had a knee surgery done. And so I think he's somebody that could be held out. We haven't gotten that confirmed yet, but it wouldn't shock me if he was at least very much, put in bubble wrap and kind of protected as he gets close to playing his final season of college football. That'll give even more reps to some of the running backs in the mix as well for that starting job. And I just feel like when you look at that group, you have Camar Wheaton coming back off of some flashes of what could be for him. You have Velton Gardner, who started out very well his SMU career, but he's got he had some injuries cleaned up late in the year. You even have Roderick Daniels, who was put back there at running back, but he's probably going back to his natural position at slot. You have veterans like Brandon Epton, who's been around a while now. He just hasn't gotten a shot. Zane Miners, a former walk-on. Desmonte Dawson, a gadget guy, factor in it all. But what you do have is LJ Johnson, Jaylan Knighton, and Camar Wheaton and Velton Gardner really set to battle it out. I mean, that is a group of four that, I mean, we haven't seen this at SMU since the 1980s. I mean, this level of at least football talent in the backfield is really impressive. And there have been good running backs that have come through SMU. I mean, that when Xavier Jones, Braden West, and I think Ulysses Bentley was a freshman coming on, and we've seen spurts of it. And obviously Zach Line was a workhorse for years, but to have that group, I mean, 3 former top 100 prospects in the same backfield, this is a really, really talented group that has a lot to prove going into this spring. And somebody's going to be trying to stake their claim to the starting job early on. And they're all here. They're all ready to work out. You know what you're getting with Tyler Levine when he gets back. So now it's time to roll the ball out and see who takes off right away. I look at Jaylan Knighton as the starter. I just think what he can do catching the football, his production at the major college football level is there. But Camar Wheaton is going to have something to say. LJ Johnson is highly motivated to get into a bigger role now that he's at SMU. And Velton Gardner is a little slept on. So we saw what he could do when he broke off that long touchdown run against UCF. But we just need to see more from him. So it's a big spring for that whole group. I think the competition is outstanding at that position. So that's my number one group that I'm watching. The other is the safety position. And this is a group that when you factor in Jonathan McGill, you factor in CJ Sanders potentially as a guy who can maybe play some nickel. You look at what they've brought in that group, and I just think it's now a position where, all right, how does everyone fit in? Because you did bring in, 2 guys in Jonathan McGill and CJ Sanders that you certainly look at as starters in all likelihood. And then does Jalen Davis Robinson factor in there at all? But he looks like a cornerback for the future. Bryce McMorris, what happens to him now that he's back off that knee injury? Is he going to move to safety? And then you have the returners. You have Ahmad Moses. You have Brian Massey. You have Brandon Crossley at nickel. Scott Simons and Kyle Cooper taking over that position group now. I think this is a group that is going to be highly competitive. It's a group that has a bright future with Ahmad Moses. Jonathan McGill has 2 years left. CJ Sanders has multiple years left. And then you have the guys that are coming back and have something to prove. You have a Brian Massey, who certainly had a year that he would probably like to forget. I mean, losing his starting job by the end of it to Ahmad Moses, who really looks like, again, a really key player for SMU in the future. Does Isaiah Wacobia come in and try to stake a claim back to a safety spot? That's something I'm watching for as well. And, I just feel like it's one of the most competitive groups on the team. And when you look at that group, you look at the corner room for Ricky Hunley. You have Charles Woods and Chris Meganson, who are day one starters. I mean, if you look at it for SMU, I mean, they just bring so much to the table. But then you have guys coming back like Kavaris Hall, Jahari Rogers, Sam Westfall, I believe, is coming back and still on the roster. And then you have Jaylan Davis Robinson, who's here as well. And don't sleep on AJ Davis. And look, the staff, when they were up there for National Signing Day, they were, Ricky Hunley kind of raved about the work AJ Davis has done. This is somebody that could stake a claim to, very well being in the 2 deep by the end of spring. And I think they have that high hopes for him. So this is in the spring going to be a position that could very well not necessarily be settled, but I look at the cornerback room as one that's highly competitive with 2 transfers coming in, as well as some returners that are going to try to stake their claim to it as well. Another room that I'm watching closely is the linebacker room. Ahmad Walker walks in as a probable day one starter, but then you get into, all right, Alex Kilgore, you were brought in as an early enrollee to be given a chance to come in and start early. And he's got the size, he's got the physicality, he's got the athleticism. But Cam Farrar, Jaquandis Burns, Kiki Burns, Pierre Gorey's back for another year. What does that room look like at the spot opposite of Ahmad Walker? That's something that I'm very intrigued by. And then, of course, this summer, you'll add in Brandon Miazano, but I'm watching Alex Kilgore. That is like one of the top guys that I want to see in action right away. How does he look? How is he adjusting? How is he processing? Because if Alex Kilgore unlocks his full potential by the time game one rolls around, at least for, grabbing a starting job and being, a starter as a true freshman, I think that's a very important piece to this defense is who lines up next to Ahmad Walker. And if it's Alex Kilgore and he's shown that much, that's a good thing, in my opinion, because he is that talented. And you have some guys coming back that have played a lot of ball over the last couple seasons now, and played a good bit and came on strong last year. Jaquandis Burns did that as they played behind that group of 3 veterans with Jimmy Phillips, Shannon Reed, and Isaac Slade Matatia. So the linebacker room is another piece that I'm watching. And then after that, this wide receiver group, I'll flip back over for the last position I'm really watching. This wide receiver group, they add Keyshawn Smith. They add Romello Brinson into the fold. They'll get, their high school signees on campus this summer, but that almost allows for Jordan Kerley, Jake Bailey, Moochie Dixon, Teddy Knox, to battle it out with these guys, coming back. Dylan Goffney, if he's ready for the spring. You've got Jackson Lavender on campus now as one of the high school signees. How do Keyshawn Smith and Romello Brinson look when they're back in the offense that they had some success in under Rhett Lashley when he was at Miami? And how did they push guys like Jordan Kerley, who's already added 10 pounds from what Casey Woods told us at the National Signing Day event? Jake Bailey, how does he look now that he's back off of his injury? Moochie Dixon came on really strong at the end of last year, I felt like. And then you have Roderick Daniels in the slot too. This is a group that we, over the last couple years, and you take out Rashee Rice because he's so dominant, but it's a group over the last couple years with these guys on campus that they haven't necessarily been able to stay healthy. And it's kind of gotten to the point where, is this the year? Is this the year that they all stay healthy and SMU has its full complement of receivers, let's say almost all year? And odds are there's going to be injuries. It's going to happen. But if they can stay healthy, they do have the talent to make life easy on Preston Stone at quarterback. And the pecking order and the positioning of them is what I'm intrigued to see when it comes to that wide receiver group. I expect Jordan Kerley, I expect Jake Bailey and Keyshawn Smith to kind of be that top three. But somebody in spring is going to have some say about all that. Could it be Roger Daniels? Could it be Dylan Goffney? Could it be Moochie Dixon? Those are all guys that I'm circling and want to see more out of. What can they bring to the table when it comes down to making a push to be a starter at wide receiver for SMU? So there's competition in that room across the board at really all three positions for the wide receiver spots. Can Roger Daniels push Jake Bailey? Can Jackson Lavender make some noise there? You have who are the true outside guys? You've got Jordan Kerley, you've got Keyshawn Smith that looked to be an outside guy. Does Dylan Goffney push outside? Moochie Dixon. These are all things that I'm going to be watching for the wide receiver room. So those are 5 position groups out of all of them that I'm watching for when it comes to competition in spring ball. We're a week away. We'll have a lot more spring preview content to come. We, of course, have one of our spring position previews coming on Friday. We're going to take a look at the wide receivers and tight ends more in depth and kind of reset things on how that group looks overall. So be on the lookout for that before we finish up next week with our spring position preview podcast with the linebacker room as Maurice Crum takes over that position as he is the new addition to the staff on the defensive side of the ball. So with that, guys, hope you enjoyed this edition of the podcast. A lot of ground covered. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are closing in on now 700 subscribers. Well over half of you guys that listen don't subscribe to the channel. Please do us a favor, help us out, and click that subscribe button. We need it more than almost as much as we need SMU in the Pac-12. So with that, guys, we're going to shut down this edition of the podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it and have a great rest of the week. We'll check in on Friday with another SMU spring football preview podcast. Thanks for listening and have a good one.